From #1 draft picks to massive international signings, MLB teams have invested heavily in some players only to get burned. Here are some of the most classic examples, starting with Adam Johnson. He was the holy grail of the 2000 MLB draft. Selected second overall by the Minnesota Twins, everyone expected him to be an ace pitcher with a pitching arsenal that would make hitters quake in their cleats. But let's just say that expectations did not quite become reality. Despite all the hype, Johnson never lived up to his potential and could never overpower hitters at the major league level. He struggled to stay in the rotation, and that dream of Minnesota having an ace quickly turned into a nightmare. To make matters worse, Johnson was unable to stay healthy for any extended period of time, adding insult to injury, quite literally. In the end, Adam Johnson's MLB career will only be remembered as one that could have been, but never was. Talk about a total letdown. But this wasn't nearly as bad as what Montreal went through. The Montreal Expos missed out on a golden opportunity at the 1992 MLB draft when they chose B.J. Wallace as their third pick of the draft. The hype around Wallace was fueled by his potential as a pitcher, but unfortunately, that potential never materialized in the majors. Even after being given every chance to make it big in the minors, Wallace didn't even make it to the major league level. To make matters worse, a few spots down in the draft, the New York Yankees selected Derek Jeter. We all know now how important Jeter was to the Yankees' success over the years. You can only imagine what would have happened if Montreal had chosen him over Wallace. But at least this Canadian team didn't invest too much money in this failure. If only things were the same for Toronto. The Toronto Blue Jays' decision to give Vernon Wells a 7-year, $126 million contract in 2006 is the stuff of legends, and that's before he even stepped onto the field. Unfortunately for Wells, he failed to live up to the hype. Despite being given every opportunity to be successful, Wells never managed to reach 100 RBI after 2006. He became a symbol for mediocrity in Toronto. As punishment for his lack of performance, he was sent from the frigid snow and AstroTurf of Toronto all the way down south to sunny Southern California with the Los Angeles Angels. Poor guy. Talk about a tough break. I guess Canadians just aren't very good at picking players in the draft. On the other hand, the New York Yankees are normally quite good at finding superstars to add to their lineup, but Brian Taylor was one player who proved to be an exception. He was selected first overall in the 1991 MLB draft and had scouts drooling over his potential as a future superstar. But despite 7 seasons of playing in the minor leagues, Taylor never quite proved himself worthy of being a full-time member of a major league roster. Sadly for the Yankees, this decision cost them, as Manny Ramirez, who went 13th in that draft, went on to become one of the all-time greats, while they had nothing to show for their investment in Taylor. Ouch, that was bad. But was it $200 million levels of bad? David Price is well on his way to being the most unsuccessful investment in Los Angeles Dodgers history. His story begins back when he signed a 7-year, $217 million deal with them, only to then sit out their shortened season and return not quite ready for action the next year. Despite being fully healthy this time around, Price has yet to see the mound, and the team is now desperately trying to trade him off. Although there doesn't seem to be any buyers out there for a 36-year-old with $32 million still due for this season, his time in LA has been nothing short of disappointing, and you have to wonder if he'll ever be able to live up to his former glory. What might have been. But some might argue that he's still better than who's next. Chris Sale's contract with the Boston Red Sox will likely go down as one of the worst in MLB history. When he signed it, a 5-year, $145 million deal, everyone expected him to be a dominant ace for years to come. But oh, how quickly those dreams were dashed, because since then, Sale has barely been able to stay on the mound, only managing to give the Sox one full season of play. To make matters worse, here we are in 2023, and he still hasn't made an appearance yet. But he's still being paid a whopping $30 million. It's almost too painful to think about how much potential has been wasted here. But with any luck, Sale will be able to make a comeback and live up to that contract, because boy does he have it in him. But remember when the Chicago Cubs won their first World Series title in over a century back in 2016? Yeah, well, Jason Hayward was an integral part of that team. team, but unfortunately, he's done little to help make it happen since then. Not only is Hayward's offense continuously declining, but the 8-year, $184 million contract he signed with the Cubs is one that will unfortunately live in infamy. The team still has $64 million left to be paid, and an additional $20 million in deferrals that can be paid out through 2027. Hayward's definitely not living up to the hype of his contract, but hey, at least the Cubs got a title out of him. Similar things happened with other legends. Madison Bumgarner is one of the best pitchers of his generation, no doubt about that, but it still begs the question, why did the Arizona Diamondbacks sign him to such a huge contract? After having an underwhelming start in Arizona and being owed $60 million for the remainder of his 5-year, $85 million contract, it looks like the Diamondbacks are stuck with Bumgarner for a while. Not only do they have zero chance of making the playoffs again, but no one's going to pay that much for an aging pitcher, and so trading him is virtually impossible. Talk about a contract gone wrong. And meanwhile, Bumgarner's probably just laughing all the way to the bank. And when it comes to less expensive disasters, Matt Anderson was the first overall pick of the 1997 MLB draft by the Detroit Tigers. Everyone was expecting him to become a dominant ace and future star of their starting rotation, but unfortunately for them, that never came to be. Not only did he have an underwhelming career ERA of 5.19, but his 15-7 record was also more due to luck than any actual skill. To make matters worse, the Tigers passed on 7 future All-Stars in the draft class to take Anderson first. Ouch. It's safe to say that this is one player who definitely didn't live up to the hype. And now, let's look at the saddest prospect in MLB history. The sad story of Brian Bullington, the first overall pick of the 2002 MLB draft, and an incredibly bad choice for the Pittsburgh Pirates. With their team in a terrible state that desperately needed some help, they chose Bullington, and things only got worse from there. His 5-year stint in MLB was full of disappointments, with having an abysmal 1-9 record and an ERA of 5.62. Talk about not living up to expectations. To make it even worse, the Pirates missed out on 8 future All-Stars in the draft class that immediately followed Bullington's selection. What a pity. Bullington was clearly a misfire for Pittsburgh, but at least he can take solace in the fact that he was part of a historic misstep. All in all, it's a sad reminder of just how unpredictable the MLB draft can be. You never know who will end up being an All-Star and who will fall flat on their face. It's a gamble that teams take every year. Here's hoping they don't make the same mistakes again. Who do you think failed to live up to the hype? See you in the next one.